and it hits me, oh my gosh, this is that triangle.
You know, there's explanation for everything that occurred in the Rendlesham Forest incident that doesn't involve aliens at all.
It was completely silent. It comes right over our heads.
He saw a classic flying saucer really standing in the clearing.
He turned over to my father and held his hand, and he looked in his eyes and he said, "We're not alone."
Welcome to Podcast UFO for our live show. We're live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Please remember to visit the website podcastufo.com for past episodes, blogs, and forums. During the show, feel free to participate live in our chat room. And don't forget to like us on our very active Facebook page.
Hello, everyone. This is Martin Willis, your host. And first of all, I would like to apologize for last week. It was Murphy's Law kicking in every which way. We had high winds, and on Dark Matter Radio, we had a fried hard drive. It was a comedy of errors. And so we really don't want that to happen again. And this week, in hour one, and also helping me out with the news, is Chip Reichenthal. That's right. I said helping me out with the news. And guess what? Alejandro Rojas somehow forgot to tell me he was on vacation this week. So I'm going to be doing the news, and Chip's going to help me. And I refuse to let Murphy and his laws affect the show this week. So Chip will be on later, actually, through hour one, and he's going to be talking about hypnosis of abductees. He's going to be talking about his UFO sighting. And this is an interesting topic we're going to bring up. ETs versus ghosts. Which will be proven first? And it's funny, I'm going to talk to him about someone that was in my office today talking about ghosts. It was kind of interesting. So in hour two, we have something really kind of exciting. It's a first-time speaker, Rob Mercer. And Rob is in Ohio, MUFON. And he also he happened to be on Craigslist a while back. And he saw something that was interesting, and he went and checked it out, and it was Project Blue Book files. So he found out that who the person was, where they originated from, contacted him. The gentleman is still alive. He's, I believe, in his 80s. And he got all kinds of great Project Blue Book stuff that we're going to talk about. It's pretty exciting. So it's kind of like breaking news, and that's in hour two. So I want to thank everyone for their support. And if you haven't subscribed yet and you want to hear the full show for only $1 or more a month, that's just 23 cents a week. And I bought a Starbucks latte the other day, and it was like $5 something. And I was thinking, wow, someone can listen for 5 months for this one coffee. Anyway, if you'd like to do the support, you can go to our website, podcastufo.com, and just click on the support link right on the sidebar. And if you can't support us, thank you for listening anyway. We appreciate every single one of you. Don't forget, we have 2 T-shirts on our website. We're practically giving them away. Matter of fact, if you just give me an offer, I'll probably send you one as long as postage is covered. Now, next week, we are going to do shout-outs for people that support us for $5 or more a month. So if you want me to use your full name, please do email me this week if you hear the show. It's at martin@podcastufo.com. And we are ready to bring in Chip and to do the news. Chip, how are you?
I'm great, Martin. I always enjoy being with you, and I sure love the show here. And I have to find a sexier name so I can keep up with, Alejandro as far as doing the news goes. But great to be here. Thank you.
You can Latinize your name somehow. We'll have to work on that.
Well, then it would be cheap, and that just doesn't cut it,
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say, as far as the news goes, all the links are right on our show notes at podcastufo.com, and they all originate at openminds.tv. And we're going to start out, Pennsylvania, UFO described as Star Trek shimmery. Now, this guy sounds like a real observer here. He was out walking his dog, and he had a satellite app on his phone, and he was looking at satellites, spotting them, and all of a sudden, out of the corner of his eye, he sees like a black triangle, and then it was like a flying V across the southwest to the northwest, and he gives all this really detailed information about holding his thumb up in front of his eye and trying to see how big the thing was. He guesses approximately how big, how fast it was going. Anyway, that story's right on our website, the link to it. And what do you think? Did you read that, Chip?
Yeah, I did, Martin. And, I think a lot about this, especially in Pennsylvania. Look, Lancaster County, and I'm mainly known as a paranormal guy, but I'm very tied into the UFO community. They're MUFON level 5, which means that there's more sightings in Pennsylvania and around that area, Lancaster County area, than just about any other state in the country. 9 sightings alone in February. So it says a lot. It ties into something, and admittedly, I'm a little sentimental today at that plane crash in the French Alps. You see world leaders hugging each other and crying, and that I can't help but be affected by that. But there's something that ties into this story, and I'll be brief about it. But again, in southern France, there was a guy who works with helicopters and quadricopters that builds these Star Trek-like flying devices. And one is triangular shaped. It's got LED lights on it. He's been very proud of it. This guy has been creating stuff in the south of France for a long time now. Kind of like some of the guys we brought in from Germany back in the 40s to, help us out with rocket propulsion and things of that nature. And it looks very much similar to what this guy described. So it could be something, explainable here. But it also could be something else, because in Pennsylvania, they've got Bigfoot, they've got this dog man, lots of UFOs, so I think MUFON level 5, so there could be something to it.
Yeah, you do. You're right. You hear all kinds of things about Pennsylvania, and Bigfoot is no stranger there for sure. So secondly, I'd like to talk about the SETI just had an upgrade, and I think it's kind of funny. If anyone is supporting the show and they went in to look on our on Get Joyride, they saw that I posted a debate with Seth Shostak from SETI. I posted it last week. It's still up there. If anyone is supporting the show, they can listen. And it's a UFO debate. And I talked to him about about this. Now they have this new, on the radio telescopes, they're doing an infrared thing. It's an upgrade from just the radio waves. And that's one of the questions I asked him. I said, isn't that kind of primitive? If you're thinking civilizations are real advanced, way advanced of us, and you're looking for them in radio waves. And he said, well, basically he said, and I thought he actually had a good point. He said that, well, it's better than doing nothing. We're just exploring with what we know. And so I have to agree. It was really hard to agree with that point, but I did agree with that point. But, and Frank Drake, God, he's like 84 years old or something. And I don't really agree that much with the Drake equation and all that. But he is a pioneer of SETI.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you familiar with SETI at all there, Chip?
I am. And, I got to be honest here, because I like that they're thinking infrared. But this guy started with radio. And if radio waves are moving at the speed of light, then we've only hit what? Maybe 60 light years. I mean, we're in the asteroid belt, maybe. So it'll take a while, really, before we could reach a civilization that hears about radio, But these guys are more astronomers than Frank Drake is, He's working with microwaves. They're working with infrared. And from, my experience, astronomers seem to be kind of non-believers, They see what they see, and they don't see any evidence of life elsewhere, even though they're really looking for it. And look, there's a lot of possibilities on the moons and Jupiter and Saturn where they're seeing possibilities of water very similar to what we have. And there could be maybe microbial life, maybe even oceanic life.
There was something this week just discovered on Mars. I don't know if you read that.
Oh yeah, with the soil samples, they this is where kind of like this week as opposed to last week, where they're really making lemonade out of lemons. Something leaked into their samples, but it turns out that they found 2% water, which means there once was water there, and could even be something underground. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. It seems like, if they're looking at the theory of panspermia, where we originated from somewhere else, like an asteroid or something of the sort, it could have been Mars.
Absolutely. Okay, we're ready to move on to the last story. and it's a MOD, Ministry of Defense, helicopter chases 4 UFOs in England. This family was outdoors enjoying a barbecue, and all of a sudden they heard a helicopter, and they looked, and it was chasing UFOs through the sky. Now, the woman told her husband, or told her son, I guess, to run and get the camera, so he came back. It was just a regular camera, nothing special, didn't have a zoom or anything. They snapped a couple of photos. So if you look at, we have a picture right on our show notes or on our homepage on podcastufo.com. And it looks just like what you would think of as a Maury Island sighting, which was actually before Roswell back in 1947. They said they had these donut-shaped UFOs that were flying over, and one of them started having trouble and started spilling like this lava stuff off of it and landed on the boat, killed the dog, injured the boy, all that stuff. Anyway, if you look at this picture, it's definitely one of those donut-shaped UFOs, and they're back. Did you look at it?
I did, and look, it's funny because if you look around the world, there are many countries that take UFO sightings and extraterrestrials much more seriously than we do, and they're really out over it much more than the United States and England. I mean, those are the two places that seems to be the most reserved as far as admitting anything. It's a miracle we got Project Blue Book, which something we'll talk about in the Ghost versus UFOs things later on in the hour. I take it very seriously, this one, especially because things seem to come back to areas like England and Ireland, and maybe it's something from ancient times, but it just seems like things tend to show up there that haven't shown up there in a long time. And, the English, they don't really speak out much about this sort of thing, so there has to be something to this one, I think.
I remember, I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name. His name was Simon something. I interviewed him in England. He was in an area of England that with really bad weather. And I said, have you ever had a sighting? He goes, no, I never even see the sky.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So, hey, well, that's it for the news this week. And take that, Alejandro Rojas. We did it. So, hey, thanks, Chip, for helping me out there. And let's get started with you because a number of my listeners have not a clue who you are. So why don't you go ahead and give your background?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually more known for a paranormal guy, but I'm very tied into ufology and extraterrestrials. I have a lot of friends who have been either what they call experiencers, which means they had either benign or positive experiences with what they consider to be extraterrestrial beings, and abductees. And I'm also certified as a hypnotherapist. So I'm familiar with some of the hypnosis techniques that they use to talk to abductees, but I'm probably best known as a radio host, including a time here, a very honored time, on Dark Matter, on a show called Keeping the Spirits Alive. I was co-host with my buddy John Tobin. I had opening editorials called Chipisms. I have a book published that is more of a paranormal thing. It's called Even the Dead Won't Tell You the Truth. It's kind of a murder mystery that is from the point of view of somebody who talks to dead people. And you got some first-person perspective there. But I've also written a couple of science fiction books. And so I've done a lot of research on extraterrestrials and ufology and some of the deeper stuff that, most people don't get to see. But yeah, I'm currently hosting a show on the A1B radio network called Beyond the Norm, where we talk about all aspects of paranormal and metaphysical and ufology.
Wow, great. Wow, it's great to have you on. I've always enjoyed talking to you.
Oh, likewise.
Yeah.
It's an honor. Thank you.
And we were going to talk this week. I'm trying to remember what the subjects were. One of them was, you had a sighting, so let's talk about that.
Yeah, I did. A couple of them, actually. And the one I didn't mention to you may be more profound than the first one. But the first one, when I was 10 years old, I was with my best friend growing up. And we were having an argument, which was very rare because we got along really well. And all of a sudden, we saw this thing up in the sky, and it was very close to us. I'm kind of old, so when I was 10, there's a show called Lost in Space on TV, and they had a spaceship
that looked. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, good.
Hey, Philly Mummy and I talk on Facebook now and then.
No kidding. Oh,
yeah.
Everybody thought I looked like him. I was like kind of a twin of his. So that's, wow. Yeah. Small world. Please send him my love next time you talk to him.
He's been ignoring me because I invited him on this show, so he decided to ignore me.
Oh, don't you hate it when that happens?
I do. Yeah.
I know, right? But anyway, I mean, this thing was almost exactly like the Lost in Spaceship. It was round and kind of big. I mean, it was close up to us, and there were multicolored lights about a third of the circumference of this disc. And it hovered over us for maybe 11 seconds and then jolted quickly to the left and then quickly to like the southwest and then darted off. And we just, well, needless to say, it stopped our argument. But a couple of years later, we saw one, and it was a cloud in the sky. And it was the kind of day where the clouds were moving along. But this one cloud stayed still, and even other clouds were penetrating through it. And even though we were rather young at the time still, I think we were 13, it was over a buddy's house in the same neighborhood. And it for about 3 hours just hovered there.
Wow.
And then we all, I don't know, got distracted, and we turned and the thing was gone. And I'm thinking, if you talk abduction cases or things like that where other neighbors don't see this thing a lot of times, and, maybe if they're hovering in some sort of cloud type of thing, then maybe they could get away with a lot of stuff that way.
How about that? Well, I want to remind everyone who's listening live, you can jump over to podcastufo.com. Right on the right-hand side, there's a chat room. You can jump in there and you can ask our guests a question. It's real easy to sign up. So, Chip, how did that? Did you talk about it with your friends a lot after that happened?
Yeah, we did. And look, it's at a time where, you just didn't talk about that stuff. So it was. The first sighting with my best buddy and I. Yeah, we talked about that one a lot. We thought it was cool, because it tied into Lost in Space, and it was like our favorite show at the time. Mm-hmm. That was a big, huge show.
It was
in its day. It's like everybody at school talked about it. The next day it was that sort of thing. But we didn't really talk about it with other people that much. We mentioned it to our parents, and our parents each encouraged us to kind of keep it quiet, because that's the type of thing that might give you a freak label or get you ostracized, just like a paranormal experience, Yep. In that day and age, you just didn't mention it. So we kind of kept mum on it. But for me, when other people talk about sightings, there's still, even in this day and age where everything seems out there on the internet, and even the news has to be a little TMI now, it still comes with some risk when you talk about sightings or abductions or experiences or anything of that nature. And so I tend to take it at face value if somebody comes out and says something. Because I'm dealing with people that go to haunted houses and see apparitions for a living, and there's a lot of similarities in some of the, I kind of pay attention to some of the quantum physics because there's some potential explanations. I don't think we're quite there yet, but maybe in 50 years or so, things will get clearer, and the physics that we're learning at CERN in Geneva, the way particles go about, and maybe wormholes and multiple universes and stuff like that, everything will make a lot more sense. But yeah, I'm a believer.
But I'll tell you what, it makes some of quantum physics, quantum mechanics, and it make absolutely no sense.
Well, that's but what kills me about it is, look, and especially as either a ghost or a UFO or ET guy, you look at electricity. Nobody really knows how it works. They just know that it works. It's an energy they can't see. Microwaves, radio signals, infrared lights. These are all things that we can't see, but we're perfectly acceptable of, and especially science. And it just seems that, science right now thinks it's got its bearings, in the 1500s, they thought they knew everything. when the world was flat.
Right.
So, I mean, it just seems in each day and age, we think that the physics that we have or the science that we have is the end-all, know-all. And these guys are talking about spooky action at a distance, but they won't entertain ghosts. That kills me a little bit. Well, I actually am starting to believe that it's possible that apparitions or ghosts could actually be living people in a time warp, because our physics is starting to go there. I like now they're talking about this multiverse theory. If our universe is infinite, then just by definition, there has to be an infinite amount of universes parallel to ours. And these travelers could possibly come from completely different universes through wormholes. And what they say about these multiverses, each potential universe has its own space and time. So a universe parallel to ours could be us 10 years ago, or 100 years ago. And maybe sometimes those things meld, and we see people from the 1890s, or the 1960s telling us to get out of their house. I think some of these extraterrestrial sightings could also be that. I mean, it's some of that stuff makes sense because of the black holes. Look, I'm an Einstein guy. I like what he said and what he did. And some of this wormhole thing, I mean, opening stargates is a very likely possible thing. But the people that report the extraterrestrial sightings, and I especially pay attention to experiencers, those who have had either benign or positive sightings, because I'm a good guy and I like positive things. So I pay attention to them. But also with abductees, and every case seems similar in that they're communicating with us telepathically. And, I work with a lot of psychics. Psychics use this thing in their brain called the pineal gland. It's like the third eye. In meditation and things like that, it opens them up. And there's some conspiracy theories, interestingly enough, that seem to kind of kill that theory. But I like to think that if we can better use our pineal glands, it says that there's fluoride in the water, these conspiracy theories, by the way. Sorry, I drifted there for a moment. And TV, early television, is all designed to kill our pineal gland, so we're more determined to follow others and not be individuals, but be part of a group, So it's kind of interesting to note that, and some of these extraterrestrials, especially the most positive ones, are these light beings. They don't even need their own bodies to travel. They can do it with their minds and use their minds to communicate. And these grays that the abductees talk about, they function like a group of insects almost, There seems to be a queen bee, and there's drones and there's workers. They're not emotional. They're doing their job. It's like the way we would treat monkeys in a science lab. It's kind of the same thing. And, look, if we're going to grow to be as advanced as these extraterrestrials, seemingly, then we would have to maybe 100, 200, 300 years from now be even more superior. And they're saying that our heads will get bigger and our eyes could get bigger. These could be us from the future, recreating their own great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren. I mean, we don't know that.
Yeah, I think I've actually said that before, only because I was listening to a scientist talk about, the difference in a billion years from now is like a difference from a billion years in the past, that we will be unrecognizable. If evolution, moves forward, it's just natural science that we will be completely what we're not. If we actually survive, that is.
Well, yeah, and it doesn't look likely. And look, I saw the show the other night about the end of days, and you look, from ancient times, you've got Hopi Indians and all these, the Egyptians, and all these ancient societies that all had kind of their end of days thing, and it's very similar to the Bible, then the New Testament and the Quran, each have their own version. But in each version, they're the good guys who are alive at the end. And for everybody to come together as a society, that's the Antichrist. So that can't happen, because whoever makes that happen is the ultimate evil. So it's really set up for us not to survive as a society. And in order to do that, once we genetically create, and I hate to say that, because, Martin, I mean, we could be the last real human beings in existence for all we know. We don't know if they've really cloned us yet or what they're doing with that technology, which they do have. And look, it's banned in this country, but not around the world. So they could already be a better, stronger, smarter us that they're working on. And once they do that, the best way to survive as a new society and a superior society is to function like insects, like bees, like ants, where they function as one brain, And there's no good or evil in any of these encounters. And I don't know, you probably have heard differently, but in all the people that I've talked to, both with abductee and experiencer type of encounters, they seem to think that there is no good and evil in any of these beings. They're either here to help us or here to hurt us, but it's not like personal, or there's no supreme being, and if there is, it's a queen bee type of thing. But there's no good and evil in the extraterrestrial community, seemingly, just like there's no good and evil in the animal kingdom. There's no good and evil in the universe with planets and stars,
So what do you think about the singularity theory? Are you familiar with that?
Remind me, please.
Well, it's basically where man and machine kind of emerge.
Oh, man. No, I hope that doesn't happen. That can't go well. It just simply can't go well. And look, I saw today they have a Mercedes that drives itself.
Oh, yeah. Well, they've had an Audi and BMW drive themselves. Actually, they had a car go with a driver in it, but from coast to coast. I think it had something to do with something Google was doing. And completely untouched, by human hands. Just it went on its own, really.
Oh, yeah.
There was a driver inside just in case.
Just in case. But that scares the heck out of me. And I saw a cartoon of all things called Wall-E. And it was a futuristic type of thing where robots cleaned up our garbage. And we couldn't even walk because we're in these flying machines with computers, just, glued to our computers and our phones, because we didn't have to, there was nothing for us to do. Everything's automated. So there's no need for us to work. And we just became this kind of narcissistic waste of a pleasure-seeking society. And look, I'm a pleasure seeker, so I don't want to give that a bad rep, But that scared the daylights out of me, because that's closer to truth than any movie that I've seen about the future, And when a cartoon kind of outdoes a good science fiction, that's some scary stuff, I like what Stephen Hawking thinks. With either singularity or trying to reach out to other societies. I have a little difficulty with that one, because I think there are some good ones out there. Just by probability alone, there has to be some, Well,
one of the things he says that I never really liked is like only kooks and nuts, see UFOs. That part's not so good. But
yeah, I like that, though. I'll happily be a kook and nut in that case, You got to wear it with some pride, I think. Because, look, you have to think outside of the box.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's for sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about, you were talking about abductees, because I actually have a friend that she might even be listening tonight. She listens to every show, and she is studying right now. She had a major sighting, or a couple of them, when she was young, and we were actually born on the very same day, on the very same hour,
wow,
in the very same city, Boston.
That's cool, and you both are in the very same line of work, kind of.
Yeah, we just kind of. She found me on Facebook, and listened to the show, and saw my birth date, and then we started talking. It was like, "Where were you born, Boston? Where were you born, Boston?
Oh, that's
what
so
time
cool.
were you born? 9:30. I was born at 9. So bizarre. But anyway, she is right now studying to be a hypnotherapist, and
nice,
and wants to get involved with the abductees. Now, I want to talk to you first of all. Going back to your childhood, I just want to know where you grew up.
Oh, I grew up in near Albany, New York. It's a suburb of Albany. It's the capital of the Empire State. It's kind of midway between New York City and Montreal, kind of dead center between them. And a very dull community, really, because we're the political capital, you know. So politicians get in trouble, and none of us can act that way ever again. So kind of a dull place. But, yeah, but at least we had a couple of UFO sightings.
Someone wants to know on the board, and it may even be the person I'm talking about here.
Nice.
She wants to know how many hypnotherapy sessions do you do with a client?
Well, it really depends because there are different focuses. My main focuses were past life regression. And some of that is kind of similar to the techniques they use when they talk to abductees. Look, there's weight loss and smoking cessation and pain management or, feeling better about your job performance or confidence and things of that nature. But when you're talking to an abductee, and I want to kind of keep it, at least for the listener's sake and for your friend's sake, which I think is so cool, by the way. Look, I've seen it on documentaries, you know. There's these guys that the experience was so traumatic that they blocked it out.
Right.
And that kind of hysterical, dissociative, it's a neurotic reaction, actually. It's in the DSM, it's a psychiatric manual as a disorder. So it's you have to be kind of tender in bringing these things back in. But a lot of non-believers watching will say, well, it's a very suggestive process. So, of course, they're going to make up a story because you tell them to make a story up. And here's the thing, especially for your friend that's listening. You really have to watch your language so you don't have them create a memory. You have to keep the language very plain as you bring them under. And look, hypnosis is not this spooky thing. I mean, if you drive from Boston to New York City, Martin, and 3 hours go by and you go, wow, that was quick. It was like I wasn't even thinking, and all of a sudden I'm here. Well, you've been in a hypnotic state. Most of the things that we do, we're doing with our subconscious mind, tying our shoes, using silverware when we eat. These are all things that we learned at a young age, and now we do it automatically. So that's a subconscious process. Really, our subconscious mind is in charge 95% of the time. And it's this supercomputer, basically, that keeps track of all of our senses. Everything we've ever seen, smelled, felt, tasted, or touched is in this supercomputer. But this supercomputer has the emotional inability of maybe a 2-year-old child. And it's being safeguarded by this judgment, belief, things that you really grew up taught, to believe or not to believe. We might have religion that tells us we can't think about certain things because that's evil and you can't get involved in them. We have friends and neighbors that say the same thing. So, really your own experience, anything that you experience comes from all this stuff. And all that stuff is blocking the supercomputer, even though it's used 95% of the time. So you have to use some very ginger and special ways to get through that cloud of judgment and belief and relax your patient into kind of a very relaxed state. And there are some people who believe, well, you'll never hypnotize me because I'm always thinking. So you have them do a mathematical problem in their head while you're feeding them this calm information. It's all about relaxation. I mean, really, that's it. You get them to relax, and you can focus on reprogramming that supercomputer. So you'll allow it to not want to have a cigarette or not want to eat so much or to go back to a previous life. And the thing is, and I'll tell you, I thought that was the biggest bunk in the world, past life regression hypnosis. I thought it was the dumbest thing I ever heard back when I was in college. But over the years, and as I learned what it's really about, it's actually kind of a cathartic process, because you can answer questions that have been puzzling you all your life. So it kind of fills holes, and I don't want to get into it too much. But all I can say is, once I learned the process, it doesn't matter if they've actually had this former life. Personally, I do believe in it from what I've worked with spirit mediums and, psychics and even paranormal investigators. There is something to that, and it is very possible. And that kind of goes into the ghost versus UFO thing that we'll talk about in a little while. But here, when you see somebody on a documentary getting somebody who's been an abductee, who's blocked it out traumatically, it's a very ginger thing, In the hypnosis community, especially in hypnotherapy, it's very dangerous to work with people who have been diagnosed as bipolar or psychotic. Nothing against my bipolar and psychotic friends. Hey, everybody's got some good sides to them. That's my thing. But a lot of people see this and say, well, it's a suggestive thing, and of course they're creating it. But no, because these hypnotherapists that have worked on these abductees to get these traumatic things out, it's a very specialized and ginger process. And the people that are studying hypnotherapy have to learn a lot of psychology and even psychiatry, and some of even the basic things, so you know where the boundaries are. And you can even use a subliminal thing. If you say you are going deeper, you can hide it in sentences. You are thinking about a coffee cup. And you are looking at that coffee cup. And as you think about that, you go deeper. So those 4 accentuated words that you are going deeper are kind of supplanted in your method. There's so much to this that I really have to kind of defend the process. And I actually think not only is it actually happening, and these people are really... they're not making this stuff up because they're told to. We have to watch that language very carefully. We have to make sure that we keep them from suggestibility, but allow them to feel relaxed about some of the things that have been haunting them. Kind of like the past life regression hypnosis, it's a very cathartic type of thing. And even though you see the guys in some of these documentaries, they're crying and they're meeting kids with grays and they're remembering being stabbed and hurt and all these things while with these non-emotive beings, working on their reproductive system without their permission and stealing them from their homes. I mean, look, I would love to meet an extraterrestrial someday. I think it would be an honor, but I don't think I'd like to be prodded, like some of these people or just abducted without permission. So if you assume that it's true and it has happened to these people, and again, we're talking about if they come out, to anybody, friends, neighbors, who are they going to tell? Cops, their pastors or priests or whatever. They're going to take some flack, and their authority in society is going to be clouded by that. So it's kind of a thing where you can't win or lose, for losing.
Chip, a couple of things. First of all,
sure.
Thanks for all that explanation. And I have to say, I'm not afraid to say this, and I've never said it on the show or anything, but, I did go to therapy. I did not have the best of childhood, so I went to therapy for a good while, and I know that I was led astray by that therapist.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Well, look, that's okay. I was
big on psychology, but I'm not big on the practice. I think no, yeah. Seriously, and I'm not afraid to say it. Look, I worked in a nonprofit teaching computer skills and vocational skills to schizophrenics. And there is such a stigma against schizophrenics. Again, they can't win for losing. And in the most primitive tribal societies, if somebody has a psychotic thing, a psychotic break, the entire community comes together. And none of the behaviors are addressed or blamed on the person. It's an evil spirit. So the entire community comes together with a medicine man or shaman in very nurturing factor. The support and nurturing is there. And they can eliminate this behavior and drive that evil spirit out in a matter of weeks or days. So they've basically cured a psychotic illness in less than a month. Here in this society, with the way we treat it, where if you think there's something wrong with you, you have to go to somebody smarter than you to say, oh, yeah, you're screwed up. How are you going to come out of that? Our psychotic disorders have an average cure ratio of 27 years, brother, because the way that therapy works or doesn't work.
Well, I wasn't saying that.
People.
I just thought I'd chime in, because you're a long-winded guy, and
Sorry.
no, that's good, because whenever I need you back again, and I need to fill some time.
Oh yeah,
I'm just teasing you, man. But no,
you could just say, Chip, how you doing? And you've got 3 hours,
But I didn't want to leave me, hanging when I just said that remark. I also wanted to say that I ended up going to someone that corrected all the time I lost and everything. So it ended up being a really good thing. But I didn't recognize what I was going to get at. And my point is, I wasn't recognizing that this was happening, that I was being led down a wrong path. And I started believing things that never really happened to me and all that.
It's easier than believing the truth. The truth is tough. Nobody wants to hear the truth.
Yeah. But the bottom line is, I wonder, that must happen if someone is not really on the mark with hypnotherapy. And let me just ask you this.
Okay.
I think that it's very possible that some people that use hypnotherapy on abductees possibly do lead them. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that nearly all of them or something, but I'm saying that some of them, I'm sure, do, because it's just kind of human nature. If you're not.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying for the sake of the documentaries that I've seen, look, there's some good documentaries out there now. I mean, really good. Pretty much from 2008 up. They've been next level. And you watch some of them, and you go, oh, my God, what kind of world do I live in? I mean, I absolutely believe, I think 100% of the people in this country believe that their government has lied to them one way or another. Even though statistics say about 70%, I think it's 100%. So you just really never know. Yeah. But in a situation like that, admittedly, look, it's a crapshoot, But I think that we're all born with instinct, even if we come in to where we are now a little broken, Look, everybody's broken in one way or another. Everybody's been traumatized or hurt or feels inferior. And the reality is that we all want to be respected, heard, believed, and it's just not set up for that to happen.
Right.
But I think that we all, if we really think about it, do have this thing called the sixth sense. It's really a gut feeling. You kind of know when you're walking into trouble before it happens. I think anybody listening could agree with that.
Now, Chip, I just got to warn you. I have to cut in here because we have like 20 minutes left. And
I know, right?
We have like something really important to talk about.
Yes, we do.
So I'm sorry. I just want to change the course a little bit.
You kind of have to with me, but that's okay.
Well, no, that was all very fascinating. I'm not really sure what I think about past lives, and I know last time I said that on the show, I got some email. I actually got an email from a scientist that supports the show and saying, that he actually believed in it, and I thought that was really amazing.
Wow.
But I'm not really sure. I'm on the fence about that, but also. The person I was talking about earlier that's going through hypnotherapy is doing some work on that as well. So I'm going to be talking to her about that.
Yeah, good for her. I think it's cool that she listens to the podcast. I think it's cool that you were born at the same time in the same area. I mean, how many of us can find somebody like that, especially with such similar interests? It's almost like a twin connection of sorts.
Yeah,
and I think that's awesome.
There's a message up on the message board that they just want to clarify this. before we move on to the next subject. I'm sorry I'm getting a little pushy here, but I don't want to run out of time. Do you think that all mental illness is caused by evil spirits?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
I just wanted to clarify that.
No, I'm just saying that in primitive society, what the societies that we think of as primitive, they can actually cure a psychotic illness in a series of months, where here it takes, decades. And it's because they don't treat the behavior of the person as wrong. They don't treat the person as broken.
Right.
They think that there is something beside the person that causes that. And the belief system helps that unconscious mind, subconscious mind, say, you know what, they're right, I'm wrong. And the behavior stops. I just think it's kind of miraculous, and it should be a lesson to the way we treat our mentally ill. That's all I have to say about it.
Right. Okay, so let's move on. And
the biggie.
This is a pretty exciting topic because, and I'll just paraphrase what we had said before, and that is, which is going to get the proof first, UFOs or ghosts? And I don't know how you came up with that topic, but I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Well, I've been doing articles for a magazine called Supernatural Magazine, and it's going to be my next article. So I've been working on it. And look, I'm primarily a ghost guy, but I pay a lot of attention to the UFO community because as a responsible radio host, you have to get into these things. I'm an astronomy guy, and now I know everything about astronomy. Look, jack of all trades, master of most of them. Because I just have the time and effort to do that sort of thing. And look, you go to paranormal conventions, you go to UFO conventions, and it's always kind of on the table, Which do you think is going to get proven first, ghosts or UFOs? And the ghost people will say, oh, ghosts, because we're in there trying to look for them, and we know what we're doing, and we'll figure it out, which I, even though I'm with them, don't believe. And the ufologists. And I actually believe that the answer is pretty clear. And I think it's easy. And I do think it's UFOs. And look, but you have to think of the ramifications of each. And I'll speak to ghosts first. We do have a couple of minutes, to work on that. There are a lot of different things a ghost could be, and there's a lot of different ghostly type of things. And look, I've worked with spirit mediums. I was actually attuned as one for about 7 years. That's a story for another show.
No. I just want to know what is attuned to one means.
Oh, I spoke to dead people for a while. I asked them some very detailed questions. And look, it is what it is. I lost a lot of friends, so I let it go. And it's kind of ironic because, 7 years later.
Dead?
No, I'm a radio guy representing spirit mediums and ghost hunters, So, and I can't get it back. I just can't, and it's a sad thing. But I ask very detailed questions when I did have that ability. And look, you can believe it or not. But these are things that I experienced. And look, ghosts is a different kind of energy. And I don't like the practice. I think they're doing it kind of wrong. Because for somebody to be in a house, maybe at a different time or a secondary dimension, or a ghost, and have trespassers come in on your property, that you built with your blood, sweat, and tears, and call you evil, or think that you're going to push them down a flight of stairs, well, what would you do? I'd push them down a flight of stairs. These people are coming into my house with all this equipment that I'd never seen before. They're like aliens, I'd want to get them out of there if I was from 1890 or 1950. So you think of them with respect. You talk to them in the language and the culture of the time period where you think they originated. You do research on the property, think who could be there, and try to communicate with them. That's communicating with an interdimensional being. It's very similar to extraterrestrial. I don't really see that much difference between the two, because if you can communicate successfully and in a respectful and nurturing manner, that's the dream. And look, I don't want to prove ghosts, but I will say this. In order to prove the existence of ghosts, you kind of have to tell every religious community that they're wrong, because it basically says that it doesn't matter what you do, how you behave in life. You will still go on, and you will be with like-minded people wherever you go, and you will be taught, and you will have multiple lifetimes to learn all the lessons in life. Look, the way we look at time, You know, the past is behind us, the future's not yet here. So everything's moments. And we're so time conscious that the moments are urgent. We have to know the emotional things now. Well, you know, we have to have answers now. So if we're trying to talk with people who might have died, then we think of them in our living state with all this urgency. And if they're dead, their hearts aren't beating anymore, and things are really relaxed for them. So the grudges don't count anymore. All they really want is people they're connected with, and they want to watch over them. It's kind of a guardian angel thing. They don't have supernatural abilities, and they're not automatically psychic just because they're dead. And they really haven't changed all that much from when they were alive. So if they're a little grumpy when they're alive, they'll be a little grumpy when they're dead, you know. If they were really nice when alive, they'll be really nice when they're dead. If they were a serial killer when alive, then, well, they can't kill you. They can't really harm you. But the whole thing is, in order to prove the belief of ghosts, you have to pretty much wipe away all the faith in the world, because all the faith in the world is saying, no, our guy says, you know, he's the only one that, died and came back, and we can't do that, and we can't talk to people who did that, and, you know, that's just wrong, that's just evil, and it's not happening, and, you know, we have to live on our own lives and watch our sinful behaviors and our good behaviors and yada yada. On the other hand, with UFOs now, if you think of it, we've had a Canadian Minister of Defense who spoke in Parliament saying that he was personally aware that the major governments of the world, since the mid-1940s or so, really when we started working with or thinking about working on nuclear armaments, you know, we had the Roswell thing. And basically since then, they've been in league with our major governments. We're swapping technology and letting them play with our people. Because we don't care about our people, we care about technology. We want anti-gravity first, you know. We want stealth first. These things. We want interstellar travel, you know. We want that kind of technology. So they're kind of drawing us along. This guy says there's like 20 different species that he's personally, you know, familiar with. Then you got a guy recently, about a month ago, 2 months ago, well, maybe longer, on his deathbed, he confessed. He worked in Area 51. He was this aeronautical engineer at Lockheed Martin and other places, and said it was more like 27 different species. Some he actually worked with that were like 250 years of age or older. And some are going to be good to us. Some don't care about us. You know, they are who they are. But we're in league with them. And to have these kinds of things being told to us, and to see these stories on the internet daily about, you know, you look at the Mars thing, and look, we talked about the scientific aspects of that today, but you see, oh, there's a statue there, and there's a coffin there, and, you know, here's evidence that there were species there. And, you know, most of these are either photographic anomalies or somebody's imagination. You know, we look at stuff, we make patterns out of them. That's what our brains do.
That's right.
But if you're going to prepare the people for disclosure, that's the way you do it. So it may be in full swing already. And by the time they come out with it, say 10 years even from now, most of us will be used to the idea. Because we're in this interweb, you know, and everybody knows everything now. You can't hide anything from anybody, which really kind of stinks for the news. I can't watch the news anymore. They have to go TMI on us, you know. They have to show too much information, because if they don't, people will find it on the internet. And that's what they're competing with. So it makes the news really hard to watch.
Yeah, that's right. Chip, just to interrupt you a little bit.
Sure.
And I'll probably have to do that when I close out. Someone on the chat room wants to know what type of coffee you drink. But
actually, Red Bull.
Okay, Red Bull. Okay.
Yeah.
I might have to take that before my next show. But, you know, a couple of things you just said I just wanted to just talk about quickly.
Sure.
And that is, first of all, Paul Hellyer. Actually, he and I communicate.
I like that
guy. And he has many times slated for the show and just has not made it, and hopefully he'll be on sooner or later. It's a little bit controversial what he has said. This is just in ufology in general. A little bit controversial, the things that he said. I would let him speak anyway and say his piece. And also about the deathbed confession. There's controversy about that, too. There's... you know, as you know, as I know, nothing is really 100% clear on these type of things. You know, I mean, interesting story, but there was some. There's been a little backlash about both of those people, especially Paul Hellyer, and which you know, very prestigious. He had a very prestigious position with the government. He was very, very well connected. He's a nice gentleman. He's sharp. He's very sharp for 90 years old. I believe that's what he is. But he has definitely, without a doubt, made some far reaches and some assumptions. You know, it's very.
But he's an interesting guy, and look, he's authoritative. But even for me in my mid-50s, he's a little old school. You know, and look, you have to. Look, I don't get along with, you know, all the 20-year-old kids out there, but I have to get along with some. I have a daughter that age, you know, and I'm keeping my eye on her. So I have to learn her community in order to do that. We've been the cool parents in the neighborhood, you know, but you also have to pay attention, and they're very different than, you know, people at my age group is. And so there's some distance between what we will accept and not accept. And even me is a bit liberal, you know, for that level. But, you know, somebody at Paul's age, and look, I'm not saying anything against him because, look, he's one of my heroes, truly. But I have to say, in this Internet day and age, you know, everything you have to take with a grain of salt. And I have read some articles that are disparaging with regard to the Canadian Prime Minister, or the Minister of Defense, rather, and the guy's deathbed confession. But the news organizations that brought these stories out are the things that I pay attention to. And look, some have a lot of kind of wishy-washy stuff where, you know, they're really trying to sell, you know, blogs or magazines or whatever. And some have been authoritative figures and wouldn't really publish this stuff unless they felt good about it. And you see the kind of or news organizations that carry those stories, and that's why I tend to believe them, especially when some of the documents I've seen with experiencers and abductees or people that have been in classified government organizations that are coming out now. You know, there's a lot of risk in doing that. So look,
absolutely. It really depends. You know, we're just about out of time, Chip. How can someone how can someone find you?
Oh, it's kind of hard to do, unfortunately, at the moment. I'm on Facebook at Chip Reichenthal, and Chip, you know, like potato chip or computer chip, it's Chip. And Reichenthal is like the Third Reich, which I hate to say, R-E-I-C-H, and then E-N-T-H-A-L. Actually, there's good information about me on the podcast page. So they can find me, or at least my book, through the podcast page. I'm on LinkedIn at Chip Reichenthal, Facebook. I'm on Twitter, well, you can't, Victims of Retail, actually, by my old band name. I'm changing all of that in a couple of months. I'm starting a website, and it'll be easier to find me. But meantime, that's probably the best way. And you can email me if you want, victimsofretail@yahoo.com. That's my band name. Victims is plural, Victims of Retail. We all are. You know, it's kind of my collective harmony type of thing.
I guess we are, yeah. So this has been a lot of fun. And I had just one more thing. Are you planning to write another book at any point?
Oh, a couple of books, and a couple of the next one is actually a sequel to my current book, but I'm adding some UFOs to it. Very interesting. The first book was really about spirit medium and handling a murder mystery, and the sequel has him having to chase a ghost who convinced this guy who is alleged to be mentally, let's say, deranged. It was his brother who suicided, and the spirit of his brother told him to kill a police officer who was the partner of the homicide investigator who was the main character in my first book.
Okay, you lost me at UFO.
I know.
And by the way, can you make that UFO in the book donut-shaped one like Maury Island?
Anything for you, brother. Yeah, it would be an honor. And I'll also name you, you know, in the acknowledgments.
It says on the side of the ship, Marty. Yeah.
Marty, I like that.
Yeah. Hey, hey, Chip, thanks so much, and we'll have you back. You're a good guy, a friend, and I'd love to have you back on sometime.
It's always a pleasure and an honor, brother. I love talking with you. Thank you so much.
We are going to be right back. This is just a little bit tricky for us here because we usually don't switch guests in the middle, but I'm going to try this. Hopefully it'll all work out. Hang in there, please. Rob Mercer, how are you?
Oh, not doing too bad.
Thank you for joining us in hour two. And this is your first time you've ever been on a show, am I right?
Yes, sir. That's it.
Yeah. And let's first of all, before we get into why you're here, why don't you tell the listening audience, and I'm actually seeing you on video here,
okay.
And you can actually shut that off if you wanted to. All you have to do is hover over with your mouse, and you'll see a little camera, and just click it off, and that way we'll have a much clearer signal. That's
all right,
better.
Gotcha.
Because I saw the picture of UFOs in your background there.
Okay.
So why don't you tell the listening audience who you are?
Okay. My name's Rob Mercer. I'm a MUFON field investigator and state section director here in the southwestern part of Ohio. I've been doing it for a few years. That's pretty much the extent of it. I also I've been following UFOs my whole life, reading about them, everything I could find on them, and what's kind of led me to what I have to share on here.
Now, what got you started in the fascination with UFOs to begin with?
I had an uncle when I was younger that was really into it, and he got me going on it. That's just all we used to do, talk about, and every time he came over.
Now, how did Mom and Dad feel about that?
Oh, no, they didn't seem to care.
Huh?
They had their own sighting when I was young. I personally, myself, have never had one that I couldn't figure out yet, but they did when we were in bed one night. It's back in the early 80s. But now I didn't. I kind of kept it to myself and, did it in my own time. I had a big family.
I always like to hear about sightings. Do you mind? Do you have any details of what your parents saw?
We lived in an old farmhouse up in Champaign County, Ohio, and they were, in the middle of the night, they saw a light out in the backyard. And I just remember brief parts of it, but they saw a light hovering over the house. And I don't have an exact time as far as year to do any investigating myself. I would like to, but that's something I need to work on, is try to, my mom's no longer around, but work with my dad to try to find out a little better details on that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of times they'll you hear people say something like, oh, they'll remember something wrong. Well, I'm telling you, when it's such a traumatic situation, I believe you pretty much remember quite a bit about the details.
Oh, well, they weren't shook up about it. I remember them telling us about it the next day. I was just so young that I didn't write down the details, but they were sure that it wasn't of this earth.
Wow, that is a statement and a half. Now, so your uncle had a sighting as well?
I remember he did. He was driving home from work, and he had seen some lights and thought they were following him. And me and him were real good friends. And like I say, he came out to my house and was telling me about it. And I remember we went out looking for it. And from then on, he always had a telescope, and we was just always kind of into the sci-fi thing there, as far as looking for things, going to different events, things like that.
Uh-huh. So now, just for the listening audience, you can go on our website, Podcast UFO. If you scroll down into the show notes or on the homepage, the week that this show is running, you will see a link to Rob's website where he has a number of these documents posted that we're going to be talking about. And they are actually Project Blue Book files. And first of all, Rob, let's talk about this is a Craigslist find to begin with, the very start of it. Can you tell us what happened?
Oh, yeah. I live, like I say, about 20 minutes from Wright Pat, and I've done service work in the area over around there for years. So I was just one night, I check all the time on Craigslist for UFO collections, because being in a lot of people's houses over the years, I've seen them. I know they have them. People tend to throw things out, get rid of things when somebody passes away.
I just to interrupt you for a quick second here. I'm more or less like in the antique, fine arts business, and I check for antiques and fine art on Craigslist and all that. I'm really into UFOs, and I've never even once thought of doing that. You may be one of the very few people that actually do that. It's a good idea.
That's what I thought. I never thought I'd find anything like this. I'm just looking for people's other investigators. You only investigate a few years, you tend to get burnt out on it. Things like that, other people's files. But, yeah, I was very surprised that I came across this. And on my website there, I've got an actual screenshot of the ad that was on there that particular night. Yep, It's down a little bit. Uh-huh. You can see it. I guess I better tell you about that. I created that website just for the area. I'm a MUFON field investigator, and I'm always – part of our investigation process is you check the Internet for correlating cases that may have happened around the time of the one you're investigating. And I started noticing that I live in Springfield. I was never getting cases from this area. Yet I'd get on somewhere like the National UFO Reporting Center, and they just have cases left and right, from around here. So I figured I would create a local website for people in the area that would go to maybe to get them to kind of report more for us, share their stories a little bit more. And that's kind of the purpose of that website. It's that's why it's called. We're technically called the Miami Valley, and that's what that's for.
Oh, for some reason I was thinking that had something to do with Miami, Florida. When I saw that, and I wondered what the connection was. Okay,
you would be surprised how many people from Florida actually visit that website too. I may have to make some changes to it.
Yeah,
but I just try to link to news. I'm trying to get people to report them so they'll be investigated when they see things. But there's a lot. I've been doing a lot of Blue Book research, and there's been a lot of cases from around this area. So I'm just trying to make sure I get some of them. But that night, it was in September of 2013, we had a MUFON meeting over in Columbus, and I was home that night and just kind of had it on my mind, and I was on Craigslist, and all I did was under for sale, type in UFO, which I had done 100 times before. And I'd seen that ad. I don't know if anybody's seen it on there, but it's an ad that said the guy had files that had come from it said from a captain in Project Blue Book. So I texted him. It was, about midnight that night when I texted him and told him to hang on to him until I got off of work the next day. And I drove down to look for it, or down to see him. They were a little south of Dayton. And sure enough, it's what he said it was. It was a couple black binders full of photos and what I call they're called case summaries. They're just like the card with the basic description of the sighting on them and what the finding was. There was several boxes of slides. There was 3 binders that have basically, they go from 1947 to 1969 and list every case that there is, that there was for Blue Book. Now, you'll find these online, but everything's redacted as far as the witnesses' names.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing of this is. It's all untouched.
Wow.
And there was, some other documents in there, a lot of files in there. So the guy, I gave him what he wanted for it. And
I got to hear what it is. How much did you have to pay?
I paid $100 for that first box. But to me, that was worth it.
Oh, no, I'm laughing because...
I'm a history guy, too. So.
I'm laughing because there's probably a lot of people listening to the show right now that would pay 10 times that. And, I probably would be pretty close to that there as well. So, and by the way, I just want to say on the air, because I know he's listening, is Chris Lambright. He's the one who connected you and I together, who you have spoke with. And you also have spoke with someone who's going to be on the show in, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, Ray Stanford.
I did.
And he
hooked me up with, talking to him is how I got hooked up with Chris. Ray, I knew much about Ray before that point, but I had found some files in there, some paperwork in there that were of interest to him with his story.
Yeah, his Socorro.
And I'll tell you guys about those. But with those files that I had, I sat on them for I had a couple people from MUFON over that weekend after. I was excited to show them to people that have been in the business a lot longer than me, just to kind of get their take on it. So I had 3 guys over from our MUFON of Ohio, and we spent about 8 hours in my basement going through them. And we were convinced when it was over that the guy we knew the lieutenant that they belonged to gave briefings on the subject just by documents that were in there. There were a lot of slides explaining statistics and different policies. So I just kind of sat on him for about 9 months after that, researching him, trying to find out who he was, if he was alive, not really knowing what to do, not wanting to get him in trouble or anything or have him wanting them back from me. I'd even drive by his house where I put the story together where they came from, the garage that they were found in, and the whole timeline to that, and knew about where he was living. And, I'd drive by hoping to catch him outside just to kind of confirm it without calling him and creeping him out. But after a while, finally he was, knowing he was former Air Force, I have a friend here in MUFON that was former Air Force, and we came to the conclusion that I'm going to have him give him a call for me and break the ice. And he wanted to. So he gave him a call at his house here in Fairborn, and turned out him and his wife had divorced several years ago, and he'd moved out of state. Well, his wife was nice enough to give us his phone number where he lived now. So my friend Pete Harninger from MUFON, he had called him and talked to him a few minutes and called me back and said, the lieutenant said to give him a call. He wants to hear about the stuff he found of his. So I gave him a call, and he was a little confused even a few minutes later when I called him. But once I, explained what happened, he basically told me, they'd gotten a divorce, and he'd forgot he left those behind. Forgot they were up in the garage. It was a 2-story garage with an attic in it, the kind of place that you'd store stuff for years and years and kind of forget that you had.
Now, how old was he when he was with Project Blue Book? Because
mid to late 20s.
Oh, okay. And so that was 1969. So
when it shut down, I'd say he was probably about 27 when it shut down, 28.
Okay, so is he 70-something?
Yes.
Yeah,
and 70s now.
Yeah. Is he the number one thing I think of when I'm hearing all this? I just can't help myself with. Would he be the type of person that would actually want to talk about this?
Well, he doesn't like to talk about the program. I mean, he likes to tell me, stuff that went on. Gives me the basics, but he doesn't have a good memory of specifics on there. I mean, basically, when it shut down and he left, he quit even messing with UFOs. He went in a sci-fi fan, and he told me he was going to prove they were real. But he was there for a little over 2 years, and by the time it shut down, he was convinced otherwise, he told me.
Really?
And he kind of put them all away. And I've asked him questions about, I asked him the most common question you'd ask somebody is, what's your opinion on Roswell? Mm-hmm. And it's honest to God, he said he'd never heard of Roswell.
Oh, my goodness.
Which is, it did go away till about, till in the 70s. When
that's right, 1979 or something like that, yeah.
And I didn't sense that he was lying, so I kind of tend to believe him there as far as that goes. So, and I've asked him, what do you think about, the astronauts and a lot of credible people with reports. That's hard to get around, You have no reason not to believe them. And he said he didn't know anything about them, but he said everybody has an ulterior motive.
Huh.
So,
wow.
I could not. I've sent him a few books, for my collection, just to try to get him to read them and get back into it a little bit. And, I call him from time to time, but he's, I I'm not getting any feedback from him for that. But he'll talk about some of the cases, from when he was there. I can't really go back before he was there because he doesn't know a whole lot about them.
Yeah.
Just what he had.
He still would be. He probably does not want to talk about it at all, especially on the show or something like that. But
he probably talked to one a person if you called him.
Yeah, person to person.
But I don't know that he would want to come on a show.
He still would, if he did. He still would be very interesting, no matter what his opinions were.
Oh yeah, he's got a physicist background and very smart guy. Very smart guy. But we. We talk a lot about politics and a little bit of everything. We don't specifically talk about UFOs all the time. But after talking to him that first time for an hour or so and telling him what I had, and he saw how interested I was in everything, he told me that, I've got a few more boxes of that stuff that, up at my house where I stay in the summer. He said, call me back in a month or so and I'll mail it to you. I said, okay. So, he gave me his number and I called him back a few months later and reminded him, and he remembered, and he said, well, I got to sort through it. It's got a lot of trash and junk and stuff in it. And I said, I'll take anything that was Air Force and Blue Book related, pencils even, doesn't matter. He said, okay. He said, well, I got he was eventually promoted to captain at a nuke base out west. He a missile launch site. He said, well, I've got my buttons and everything. He said, I don't really have anybody to give them to, and he sent all that to me in the boxes. So basically, I got 3 more boxes from him of files. They were good-sized boxes, full of books. And, there's not every file. But it's a good collection of files. A lot of them are just single-page. There's a lot of complete files in there.
Now, let me ask you this.
It took me a while. Go ahead.
Yeah. How would someone in his position actually take these out of the office? I just can't see how that would be possible unless when they closed Project Blue Book in 1969, they just said, hey, take whatever you want or what's in your desk. We have the main files or something like that. How could someone actually take what he had?
Well, he said they spent a couple weeks declassifying everything. All the Navy files they had to pitch out. Because you can't, you couldn't declassify those, he said, because of, you can't give away locations. Mm-hmm. But everything else they declassified that they could. And the only thing I can figure is some of these, everything I have file-wise, you can find the case file online. I may have, better quality of pictures, things like that, but they're all the case files themselves are all online. So I don't think there's nothing in there that he didn't, bring home. But for a while, I was trying to figure it out. Was this stuff out of his desk? And the last time I was talking to him, we was talking about it a little bit more. I assumed it was because of the briefings. I've got documents where he gave briefings on UFOs to the Air Force, 3 or 4 of them. I'm sure he did more than that. Those are just what I have. But a lot of it seems to be his personal stuff out of his desk. But also, he revealed to me the last time I was talking to him is he put a press kit together. When he got there, the press was always going at it with the Blue Book staff, wanting to see things. So he charged himself with and I've even got basically a resume he put up of his duties that's in here. He charged himself with straightening up the files a little bit and making it easier for the press to come in and look at things.
Huh.
So when he was doing that, kind of Quintanilla, which I call him Quintanilla only because that's what the lieutenant calls him. I'm probably not pronouncing it right, but it's easier to say that way. Quintanilla came in and jumped him for doing that. Basically said, the press is always on us. Don't do anything to help them. Well, he did it anyway, made them nice and organized for them to look at. And, of course, then they loved it. Well, then he told me that Quintanilla tried to take the credit for it, being his idea after that.
Yeah.
But a lot of these are photos that they had to show the press, case files. But some of the numbers on some of these files are from the early 50s, 3-digit case number files. And the files are so old they almost look original. So it's really hard for me to say for sure. That's what kind of my ongoing research, trying to figure out the time period that these were actually copied and made. I don't know if some of these are originals and copies were made and put in the file more organized. But I've got, a lot of the early 50s cases on here, too, that are actually complete. They're actually in brown folders They weren't loose like a lot of the other files in there. But yet, if you go online, you'll see the brown folders scanned in on, the Fold 3 website or the government website. So there's a lot of I'm still trying to figure out the complete system as far as that goes. But there has been a lot of I've found things in here that I can't find online as far as documents, regulations, office memos, lots of things like that came through the system.
Yeah, let's. Anything stand out that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I'll start with the Socorro case in Ray. We had a couple guys from MUFON, Virginia, that were helping James Fox do some research on Socorro, and I contacted them, telling them about the file I had, not really knowing what they were looking for, just kind of basically telling them about it, and they told me about Ray, which prompted me to look into Ray. So I was reading about him on the internet, and I saw his symbol that he had, for years had been saying, the inverted V with the 3 lines through it. Mm-hmm. As I was looking at that, I was thinking, I know I have seen that in one of these books. So as I got my Socorro file, it's the most complete file I have. It's all Xeroxed, but it's basically 170 some pages of the complete file.
Wow.
And inside there are probably, I'm guessing, about 15 pages of notes taken, the best way I can figure, notes taken from Wright-Patterson.
Now, are these mimeograph notes or the originals?
They're handwritten. They're Xerox copies, but they're handwritten originals and then Xeroxed.
I see.
The page is Xeroxed. And I stuck one of them on my website, and it's actually got the symbol on it. And it talks about Sergeant Chavez saying that it says Air Force personnel, which I believe the original story was supposed to be Army. Captain Holder told him, but Air Force personnel said substitute the symbol. Now, that doesn't prove, that symbol, that is the truth, but they wrote it down. I mean, it does prove all these years that Ray saw that symbol, was told that symbol, if you ask me, because it says on there that the police officers told, the Air Force that they were told to use a different symbol. Lonnie was told to use a different symbol down there.
Right. Yeah.
And then there are also real good quality pictures that came with it. I got a manila folder that came with like 13 folders from the scene.
Really? And the site actually where the pad?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can see the burnt bushes, and they're better than anything you can see online. I put a few of them on my site there. You can see the scorched bushes. They were taken the next day. I believe a lot of them were taken by the newspaper, but not all of them. And the police officers had already placed the rocks around the impressions. But they're pretty good quality pictures. Now, when the Black Vault had the Blue Book files there for a week or two,
right,
and that was nice to get on there and compare things.
Oh, how long have you had these now? You said over a year?
I've had the first box since September of 2013, but I kind of just kept them to myself. Mm-hmm. I got the other stuff actually last June.
Okay. Just to remind we have a number of people in the chat room. No one's really too active in there, but if you're listening live, you can jump in the chat room on podcastufo.com, and it's real easy. Sign in and ask our guests a question. Also, if Chris or Ray happen to be listening out there and you want to call in, either one of you or both of you, that's 603-967-4030. One more time, 603-967-4030. You're welcome to call in. Okay, so sorry to interrupt you. You can go ahead.
I'm sorry. The Socorro file, I'm trying to put a timeline. I talked to the lieutenant about that file. I asked him, did you put this one together for the press? And he said it was put together by David Moody, who was Sergeant Moody. He was the guy from Wright-Patterson that was down there investigating. And he said that he had put that together. And he had spoke to him about that case. I mean, that one he remembered talking to him about. And he said Moody was convinced that it was NASA, one of their lunar landers himself, which I've never bought that story.
No, that's totally ridiculous.
Them things were wobbly. There would have been a crew out there if that was the case.
Yeah, there's a lot that didn't make any sense with that claim.
Yeah, but there's a lot of, a lot of things you'll see. I was going page for page on the Black Vault, seeing what I have. Some stuff I have that's not in the government files. Some stuff that's in the government files is not in my book. So I was just trying to. I still a lot of research to do to try to figure those out. I mean, that black vault was handy, but it only lasted a week or so, and they took it away. So kind of. The other ones are a little harder to look into things. It's time consuming, I'll put it that way. But I've also got a lot of just some of the photos I have. I'm going to point out another case here in particular. 1952, Cuba. It's one that in the Project Blue Book files is listed as a case missing, or card missing. I got several pictures. It's just a dot from that one sighting. I've got a Homer, New York, in April of 11th, 1964. Had a doctor, him and his wife and their 2 kids were having a picnic and saw a craft come down and break off into different pieces and maneuver around over a 45-minute period. Was why they didn't have a camera, and his wife sketched the pictures for the Air Force. And I don't have it written in my files, but I've seen it online where they submitted 7 photos and 7 glass slides to the Air Force. Well, the glass slides are in this collection. I doubt the Air Force would have made duplicates of them. So there's quite a few things in here that are one of a kind that I've haven't been able to figure out what to do with yet. Mm-hmm. There are lots of books in here too. Like I'm looking right now at the book Incident at Exeter.
Oh yeah.
It's a Xerox copy, but it was Hynek's copy because it's got his name on it. I mean, it was his original. I think he copied it and gave it to the Air Force. But it is heavily highlighted inside.
Is it annotated as well?
Not annotated. Well, there's question marks and different things and smiley faces and things like that, but a lot of highlights.
Smiley faces?
Yeah, just different little doodles and things in it.
Mm-hmm.
Where they've it's a lot of I've got a lot of their research tools. That's why I think a lot of it came from their desk. Lots of manuals and regulations and everything. And they had some pretty interesting books in here. They even had a copy of the NICAP UFO evidence book from 1964.
Wow. Hey, let me just ask you this. This is just out of my own ignorance here. Was Project Blue Book at Wright-Patterson?
Oh, yeah.
See, I didn't even know that. But, I mean, now, it even makes more sense.
It was there. It was there the whole time. They started there. Well, Project Sign started there in 47, and Blue Book started in 52 and went up to 69. But I've got a lot of memos, about telling that basically it's a lot of notes that they had telling them what was coming as far as, the Condon report and lots of there's even a folder in here that's I think it's the actual stuff they sent for the Condon report. It's got a lot of sightings listed in it, photographs put in it. It's what they sent out to Colorado. That's what the folder says on the side of it. So I don't know if it's a copy of the one or the actual one, but it's got a lot of stats in it and everything. And I got a lot of statistics that came with this. There's I'm trying to grab some of these books here. Just different. They had memberships to meteor clubs, so they could, a lot of the research tools of things they were looking into. Now, when they were there at the end, the lieutenant, it was just down to him and basically 3 other guys when he was there when it shut down at the end. And then for the last couple months, it was just him and Quintanilla. So they were stretched thin as far as investigating. They had a lot going on. Now, they also got a box of reference cards and their notes that they used. Basically, I'm assuming for typing up things, when people call and ask them a question. And one I found in here was on the estimate of the situation. I haven't found that in here. I wish I would. That's one of the first things I was looking for. But I found several letters and correspondences that mention it. And I got one here that's basically it's what they're to say. Best I can figure is what they're to say if somebody inquires about the estimate of the situation. And it says that basically Captain Ruppelt said everything about it that he could say in his book. I mean, basically they're saying what he said was true as far as it was brought up through the chains and then they told him to kill it and burn it. I mean, that's what they even – I found it surprisingly to see that they had that written down in here because normally the Air Force says it didn't exist. never existed at all. So there's a lot of little things like that in there.
Wow. So if I offered you like $1,000 right now, would you take it?
No, I'm a history guy too myself. I enjoy still. I'm not done looking at it yet. Put it that way.
Yeah.
I feel like I owe the people of Ohio a chance to see it. I take it to libraries around here, things like that, kind of showing it off a little bit. People seem to like it though.
On a serious note, I think of stuff like this. I actually have a former museum. It's actually literally a former museum with showcases and an alarm system and all that. And I keep thinking, wow, I would love to like house something like that so a lot of people could come in and take a look. So maybe when you get tired of them down the road, we'll talk. There's some other people I can talk to about this, but it would be a fun place because it's like a B&B. People could stay and read the stuff. So if you're listening and you have tons of money and you want to help out with a project and open a UFO museum, I got the place.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do just yet, but I'll keep that in mind. I know I'd like it to end up somewhere where public can see it sometime. I mean, I hate when things like that get put away and nobody gets to look at them again.
Yeah, and you can also, on a serious note, I'm sort of joking around a little bit, but a little bit of it, like I could always be, talked to about stuff like this. But I do want to say how that works a lot of times is you can have things out on loan. Things can be out on loan to different, like, historical societies or someone that actually, someone that would really have an interest. Like, let's throw this out there, that the Roswell Museum would take it in and display it for you for a year or two. These are all possibilities. That is a place right there where definitely people interested would get a chance.
Yeah, I've been down there. It's a nice little setup they have back there a few years ago. Well, I took all a lot of the loose files. There were when I got these and I opened all the boxes and stacked everything. It was probably 5 foot tall of papers and books involved. Now, some of these books are Xerox copies, but they're still decent books. But they were. It took me a while to separate everything out, trying to figure. And I've put everything in binders, in acid-free binder sleeves. That way, people when I do come and share them with somebody, they actually get to touch them and look at them. There were a lot of film. I guess I haven't even talked about the films. There were films in there.
Like 16 millimeter or something?
16. There's a 16 millimeter of the Tremonton sighting from 1952. But I went to have them. I had them all transferred to digital format.
Wow.
That one I was disappointed in it. First of all, I was hoping, because Officer Newhouse, always said that there was about 20 feet missing off his film when he got it back from the Air Force. So, I didn't try to measure it. I kind of wanted to get a count on it when I got done. But the thing is 60 years old and was very brittle.
Yeah.
So I was kind of disappointed in the quality of the video I got from it. But I was able to get a copy of it. But what you can find online looks better. It's unknown if it's longer just because of the quality. But I will say it finishes it off. It's got somebody sewing. I'm assuming it's, him or his wife. So it may have the extra on it. It's just I've not been able to totally determine that yet.
Or is it a gray? Is it a gray sewing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now,
first I thought it was soldering, but it took me a little bit to figure out it's a sewing machine.
Okay. Now, is there actually negatives as well?
There are on photos.
Yes.
Yeah, there's quite a few negatives. There, not all of them, but some of them there are. Now, I did back to the Socorro case. There was an interesting mock-up in there. It was a toy police car and a toy police officer running, and then a craft, down in a Gali desert scene that looked like the Socorro craft. Obviously, the car wasn't the same color, but on the back on the envelope there was 9 copies of this picture in a Manila envelope.
So and they actually made a setup of this and took a picture of it.
I don't know if they made it or somebody made it and sent it to them, but the negatives were in there and 9 copies of the picture. And it says Socorro, which, it was obvious that's what it was, but it says Socorro mock-up on, they'd written on the back of the pictures.
Wow.
I've been able to figure that out. I've actually here in the last few days came up with a few phone numbers from former Blue Book staff people. I haven't called them yet, old couple secretaries that are still alive. That's one of my endeavors is I want to try to figure out where that picture came from. Who, if it was the Air Force that made it. I'm hoping that somebody that was back there in 64, which I have a lady's phone number that was. I don't know that she'll remember it or probably not, but I'm going to kind of ask her and see what she says. I don't know if it was made from somebody down that way. I just have no answer for that. And the lieutenant didn't either. Like I said, it was 2.5 years before his time, so he didn't even remember that they were in there. Now, another film I had was the Moline, Illinois, Officer Fisher. He had seen the scar-shaped craft, or the boxcar-shaped craft in the sky. There was a 8mm of that. I have another 16mm. It's just a dot in the sky, and the only thing written on the case is UFO unclassified, and Foreign Technology Division. So I've not really been able to figure out exactly what it is. But there were sound reel-to-reel tapes in there also. One of them was from it was March of 1968. Ended up being a Zond Russian satellite re-entering the atmosphere. But there's probably a good hour interview with police officers from Morgantown, West Virginia. This sighting was all over the Northeast. And the lieutenant actually told me it was one of his favorite ones. And he was never more sure about a sighting than that one right there. And he never figured out exactly where it landed, but he had it down to like a 50 square mile area up in northeastern Pennsylvania, southern New York, in that area. But there was also a lot of radio interviews on there from shows back in the 50s on some of these sound tapes too. So the Air Force kept track of a lot of that stuff.
Now, did they have anything really fringy on there, like some real fringy books on contactees or anything as well, or was it really sticking to cases more or less?
There was one book, and it was a Frank Strange's book, Flying Saucerama. It was autographed to another guy in 59, but it was in that box of stuff. So I'm assuming, the only thing I can assume it was around their desks there in the Blue Book office, when he was cleaning up, and he just kind of threw it in. So, yeah, that was the only thing fringy I found in there. Everything else was more, there was a lot of neat reference books. Like, I'm looking at one here. It's the reference for outstanding UFO sighting reports. They had a lot of reference books like that. There were a couple textbooks for physics from the U.S. Air Force Academy also. But they actually do talk about unidentified flying objects in these books. The lieutenant didn't remember. I was asking in particular about him because he has he's a physicist by training. He didn't remember if they were from his training or Project Blue Book material. He couldn't tell me. He didn't even remember them. He just sent them to me. There are lots of books. Another thing that was in there was a Rolodex of every kind of a who's who of UFOs back in the 60s. Stanton Friedman's name's in there, and his address and everything. Phone numbers, addresses, and everything like that.
Now, just NICAP. Let's talk a little bit about NICAP. Now, NICAP was actually going on the same time, somewhere in the 60s. So Project Blue Book and NICAP were both, in session basically at the same time. Have you found any reference to NICAP and NICAP papers or anything mixed in there as well?
I found a few. Nothing that's groundbreaking, but a lot of NICAP books. So they obviously either shared information with them or at least followed them. Mm-hmm. There's several of these reference books are NICAP related, and there are paperwork in there that's NICAP. Lots of correspondences from Carl Sagan. A ton of them from
really?
Philip Klass. There's almost not a letter without him making fun of somebody that's into the subject. I didn't know much about himself till I started looking at these and kind of got a better handle on what he did. There's a lot of things like that in there. Correspondences though between James McDonald and I got a book set up here. There was also they had a folder on NORAD and space defense. A lot of this stuff is 50 years old. Hopefully it's not relevant anymore, but pictures, inside the place, pictures of their telescopes, pictures of radar locations, charts, things like that. Lots of things from the FAA in this same folder also. Once again, though, it's a lot, they did a lot of research. I can't deny that they didn't try just by seeing the stuff they have in here.
Now, what was the tone of McDonald, that correspondence?
He was usually more, I can't think of him right off just a second here. I'm getting that book out. He was, his cases were more trying to offer solutions, logical solutions, what they had, guesses more. Now, I've got a lot from Donald Roby. He wrote a lot of books on the green meteors and the fireballs. Mm-hmm. And plasma, a lot in there from him. There's a lot of most of the correspondences are trying to help them explain. They would send these guys papers. Even I've got a document from '66 where the Air Force says they're going to start using scientists, but some of these are from way before that, where they were actually using them and asking them questions about things. I'll have to get some of those scanned in and put on my website, though. There are a lot of Air Force publications about AIDS. I'm looking at one now, AIDS to Identification of Flying Objects. There's 3 or 4 different issues of that. Inside, it would have the stats and then, tell you what the latest airplanes that are out there, things like that. Stuff I've never seen anywhere before. Then there's a lot of stuff on Hynek. Now, by the time the lieutenant was there, Hynek had already kind of changed as far as pro-UFO. Pro-alien, and the lieutenant and him butted heads a lot. Now, even in his book, he mentions the lieutenant, said that the lieutenant was surprised that Hynek talked about him in a good way because he had to get on him so much. He had to get on him, taking 6 months to complete a case. A lot of these files that I have that are single page, they'll have written on it, Hynek Special. An ink pen. Basically, it was at the ones in the late 60s, basically where the lieutenant said everything he saw he wanted to unidentify. Huh. So they kind of butt heads a little bit. But I do have one of his contracts and a lot of his bills that he would send the Air Force, copies of them, not the originals, copies of his bills for his time, for each phone call he made and places he went from the late 60s. So there was some pretty neat stuff in there like that. But there's just a lot of little books, a lot of pictures, a lot of color pictures. When you get online now, like on Fold 3's website, I'm going to pull out one here, and in particular is Governor's Island, New York in July of 1952. It ended up being an unidentified case. And I've got 4. There were 6 pictures taken, I guess. I've got 4 of them. They're pretty interesting pictures with the color and everything, what you can see in them as far as, what the black and white parts are. So, I'm not opposed to sharing them with people if somebody's interested in a particular case, and they can shoot me an email. And if I have anything on it, I'll kind of share it with them. That's how I kind of got hooked up with Ray and Chris. And I got another guy that's probably been on your show before, Dave Marler, out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. He's coming up on April 15th, actually. Oh, is he? Okay. Well, me and him, we do a lot of sharing information over, the internet, and he kind of helps me out a little bit with questions down that way, too. So I've got a couple guys that are working with me a little bit trying to sort this stuff out. Speaking of Dave Marler, he's known for triangular UFOs. He wrote a book on it. Great guy. You hear his name a lot. And speaking of that, I noticed in these pictures there's a triangular UFO in a light formation, daylight sighting. And is it a color picture? No, it's a black and white picture. Okay. I can't pull it up right now. But I just was going to ask you, it sounds like you wouldn't be able to cite where that particular one was. Yeah. It's actually out of a window of a car or a train or... Oh, that's the one in Massachusetts, Salem, Massachusetts in 1952, I believe. Yep, it says up on the photo image, July 52, Massachusetts. Yes, you got it. Yeah. Now the Air Force, I believe that one was classified as unknown. Some people will say it's reflection of lights inside. Now that picture, normally when you see that picture, it's cropped. You can't see the actual window, but you can see there that they're inside of a building taking that picture out in that picture. And that one, I can't remember the exact classification of that one's escaping me right now, but I know which one you're talking about, and I'm pretty sure that one ended up being unidentified, even though a lot of people say it's lights off of a ceiling reflecting through the glass.
Well, that is a possibility for sure, when you look at it.
And I've got the paperwork on that, and they, in their investigation, they're talking about the way the sun's hitting the cars and the shadows and the reflections off the cars. A lot of these I'd like to, as I get time, I try to, I've got so many things I'm trying to do with these, count how many's in there. But I'm trying to investigate cases, with present technology as far as star charts and everything. And it's a little time consuming, but that's one I want to work on a little bit. Now, one thing I did not say, the 3 books I was telling you about that have all the case listings, they've got it's funny, they've got all the Navy listings in them, all the military at sea ones, all the coordinates, which when I told him I had those books, he said, I probably shouldn't say this, but, there might be stuff in those books that we didn't send down to Maxwell. Now, all that did was make me try to count them all. And that's a horror. I just went through counting the Ohio ones, and that took me a good week trying to get see how many there were there. But you can't really do it online. I mean, there's just so many different versions of things out there and things blacked out. So, over time here, I'll hope to have more answers on the actual count in those books to see if it's the same 12,618 that Blue Book's supposed to have, and the same 701. There could be more, could be less. That's kind of one of my projects I'm working on. But I know Ohio alone, in the 22 years of Project Blue Book and Sign and Grudge, had 1,124 sightings. So 22 of them were unknown. So that's how Ohio had a lot of them, and especially the Dayton area, which kind of surprised me.
Well, I believe that's what our guest said last week, if I remember right. Also from Ohio. I was looking at a couple of documents. I wanted to talk about one. We have a FAA, Federal Aviation Agency, document here, basically on reporting of identified flying objects. And that's interesting, because basically the FAA wants nothing to do with UFOs today.
And there's a huge file on FAA and space tracking and radar tracking in here.
Yeah.
Trying to find that particular one.
Well, that's okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm just going to, there's just a couple of them that were intriguing. Okay. How many documents would you say that you have approximately?
Oh, I've got 30 binders that I put together that are probably 2 inches thick on average. And then I have a tub full of actual files that probably have 40 files in them that are, the original ones I'm not wanting to break up out of their brown folders. A lot of those are, historic ones. Trinidad Island, just the whole interviews with all the officers. A lot of military sightings in there. But a lot of them are just single case files, also, just one page. And I asked the lieutenant about that. I said, is that all there was on these? He said, no, that's because he had pulled them for the press, just the case summaries. So.
Yeah, I would say I saw a couple of things I saw one piece here from Carl Sagan. Interesting.
Yeah, the lieutenant, he remembered that one because when I was talking to him at, first or second time, he's like, well, there's one letter I'm going to send you. He said it's an autograph from Carl Sagan directly to Quintanilla. And he said, you'll like that. Now, I'm not sure. I'm trying to determine if that's Carl Sagan's signature or actual secretary's.
That's actually, we could talk offline, and that's something I could do. I do a lot of research like that. But, that's interesting. And
as you can see, that one's not a copy. And there's a lot of these that aren't copies, but all the case files themselves are copies. Like I say, I've got those glass slides. I've got some other photos and things in here that I'm assuming most of them, like I say, I've not been able to research all of them. If that black vault had been still around with their easy to search, they had, I would have had a little. I'll have a little more answers as I get some more time to go through that stuff.
Yep. That was a lot of wasted work by
I know.
John Greenwald. It's too bad.
It was just easy. I mean, the other ones, like say, you can search them, but that one was so easy to just get on there and put in what you wanted. And, I mean, I was really able to cruise right through the Socorro file page for page and just see what I had and what I didn't. And that's kind of how I came across, that stuff for Ray.
Would you assume that these cartoons that were in the lot were just sent like from friends or,
No, those were, I think they were clearly collected by the staff. And some of them are, I think by the staff the whole time, some of them from the early 50s. They have dates on them. You probably can't see them on there, but there's some of them have dates, like say it's 51, 52. And then there's one of them there that's got a doodle about Captain Gregory on it. There might be more than one that's actually doodled about him. So I think it's just guys sitting in the office, clipping and collecting. The funny thing is that there's probably 150 cartoons.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Some of them's napkin. One of them's a napkin with aliens on it. Just anything they could find.
Yeah.
With that stuff on there they kept. It's kind of funny how they did. Some of them are pretty good, too. But my favorite one's the one I put on the website there of Quintanilla hypnotizing the crowd. That's all. Somebody did that, obviously, from 66 on. Scribbled that one on there.
I'll have to check that out. Now, there is one picture I did want to talk to you about, and it looks like a disc-shaped UFO behind the tail of a jet from the cockpit. It's like a fighter jet, maybe, or something.
And I've tried to figure that one out. That one was loose in the box. All the other slides were in a slide box, but that one was just loose in there in the papers. And the only thing written on it was B-47 tail.
Wow, that's quite an object in the back.
Oh, and it was the thing had like a film all over it. So I bought some special alcohol and was able to clean it up. And I've dated, it's kind of a tie-in as far as that alien slide that's coming out here in May.
Right.
As far as the dating goes, I was able to date that. There's another picture in there that shows on my website that shows 7 silver slides. Those are the Homer New York glass slides. But also down at the bottom, it's got a red and white slide. That's that particular one, the casing. And it's from, I dated it from 49, I think, to 55. Somewhere in that period is when that one was made. 49 to 57. Mm-hmm. So I've tried to determine whether or not that's a few years before the B-47 that went around there and around the Mississippi River there, Texas and Mississippi, the RB-47. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's from that one. I've done a lot of searching B-47s and Project Blue Book on the internet, and surprisingly there was a bunch of them. And I can't find one in particular that said there was pictures like that. Now the RB-47 said there supposedly was pictures, but nobody knows where they are. I've never been able to confirm if that's what that is. I know it's a pretty picture. It almost looks fake. And I can't tell if that's probably a glare, but I can't tell what that is in that. I've stared at that thing for hours trying to figure it out. If it's what's following it, if it's an actual object or a light.
It sure looks like it, and I'm wondering if that can be enhanced somehow.
But that's just, as far as that slide goes, that actual picture, I projected it on a wall in my house on my screen and just snapped a picture of it. And even that's fairly good quality. If I took it somewhere and had it actually transferred, I've kind of been hesitant about taking this stuff and leaving it places.
Sure.
It killed me to do that to the film, but I had no choice.
Ray will make you even more scared if you talk to him about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he told me he had stuff come up missing from his house and everything. So.
Oh, yeah. He's had a bunch of stuff like that happening. We have about 3 minutes or so left. Okay. Actually, we only have a couple of minutes left. So let's talk quickly about, first of all, we already talked about what your future plans possibly are.
Yeah.
And so if we know where someone can find all these, and let's just say that someone has enough of an interest that they actually want to view these in hand. Is that something you'd actually make possible?
Yeah. And, I mean, if they want to come to where I'm at, yeah. No, I take them around Ohio here, and I may end up taking them farther. But we're having one place I can tell you in particular they're going to be is June 6th, MUFON of Ohio. We're having our conference. It's up northern Ohio in Ashland, a little south of Columbus or Cleveland. I'm going to have them there all day. I'm not doing any presentations or anything. I took the first box I had last year, and people loved coming up and looking at it. Well, this one, I'm going to have a couple tables and set everything out so people can, browse through them during the conference. Conference is 6 or 7 hours long, in between speakers and during lunch.
Yeah.
Anybody that wants to come to that are welcome to come and browse them. James Fox is going to be there. I know he's been working on that movie 701.
Right.
I intend, hopefully, to show them to him.
That'd be great. I'm sure he'd be that could actually be part of that film. So we have a little less than a minute left. So can you give out your website if you would?
Yeah, it's Miami Valley UFO Society.com.
Oh, wow, that's a long one. Miami Valley UFO Society.com, and that will be in our show notes.
Okay. And I say I just try to – it's just a link to news sources. It's mainly to try to get people around here, a local place. Maybe they'll start giving reports, clicking them our way, which they'll go to MUFON if they come through my site. But mainly it's just try to get people around here talking about the subject. So many people have had relatives work there at Wright Pat. I mean, there's stories out there to be found. You just got to find them. That's
right. Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
All right. No problem.
It's been a real pleasure. And good luck with these. And I'd be interested to see what happens down the road. So that's it for the show this evening. I want to thank you for being our guest tonight. And I also want to thank people that helped. Actually, it was Alejandro Rojas did not help with the news this week. It was Chip Reichenthal helped me out there. Alejandro should be back next week. He didn't tell me if it was a 2-week vacation, though, so I don't know for sure. Carrie Lloyd Whitehouse has provided the music for us. Peggy Shunning, I want to thank her for managing the Facebook page. Remember, you can like us on Facebook for all the latest UFO news. And you can check us out live right here on the Dark Matter Radio Network and every Wednesday at 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Next week, we have Terry Ray. He's the author of The Complete Story of the Worldwide Invasion of Orbs. I wanted to talk to him about this, so that should be great. So tune in next week. And this is Martin Willis signing off.